So I am doing this because several people have asked the question about why is it so important that I know my numbers. Now, recently, two of my friends, Stephen and his amazing wife, Teresa Rush, did a recent video where they talked about, knowing your numbers in the marketing. And I thought it was such a great idea that I wanted to just add on to it, or actually just walk through an actual example of how knowing your numbers actually leads to you being able to be more productive and more likely to actually hit the numbers that you want to hit in your business. So I decided I'm just going to do an example and we're going to walk through it piece by piece. This is exactly some of the things that I would walk through with some of my clients to help them understand why it's so important, not only for you just to know your financial numbers, but also for you to know your operational numbers. Because as you start to know your operational numbers and your numbers in your sales funnel, it's going to help you become more productive, and it will actually give you more control over whether or not you actually hit your target. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into it. All right. And trust me, this one is going to go pretty quick. So make sure you're paying attention, or you can always go back and rewatch this again if there's something that I moved too quickly on this one. So the first thing is, let's say, you have a goal, and let's say you want to hit, $10,000 a month in revenue. So let's say your first goal, you want to hit $10,000 a month in revenue. And let's say if your average price for your product, let's say if it's $500 is the average price of your product. Immediately, what that tells me is you're going to need, at a minimum, you are going to need 20 clients to be able to hit 20 clients doing 500 a month to hit that target that you want. Now, that becomes great, and that becomes the first part of you knowing your numbers, of being able to figure out what's my average value per client, or what's my average price per client. That comes from just being able to look at your data and understand that. Now, the next part we want to look at is really starting to get kind of into, operational, or into the marketing area of, all right, let's start looking at your marketing numbers. So let's say if let's just look at create the baseline, because sometimes you don't always know exactly what this is. So let's just start with the baseline. Now, the baseline is, let's say, in month one, your baseline, you had 10 leads that month. Okay, that's cool. And let's say out of that 10 leads, let's say 40% of them actually bought, which means you had 10 leads, 40% of those people actually bought, and you spent $175 on marketing that month. So that is another important part of actually knowing those ingredients to your business, and knowing those ingredients to what's going on in your business. Next, you want to bring that down and say, all right, let's actually bring that down into dollars and cents. And let's say, all right, if you spent, and let me back up so you guys can see all of it. All right, so let's say in this scenario, you had 10 leads, and 40% of those leads actually turned into paying customers, and you spent $175 on actually getting those leads to go through your funnel. What that tells me is it's about $17.50 per lead. And because your average price, which we already talked about, was $500 per customer, or per sale or whatever, you're going to do about $2,000 a month. Now, if you're wanting to figure out, okay, all right, how do I get back to my goal of hitting 10,000 a month? Well, let's go through scenario number one. So since we already know what the cost per lead is, what if you ended up spending $500? Now, I've already set up the formulas in here, so it's going to populate quickly. So if you did 500, you spent 500, 500 divided by 1750 gets you 29. So you're going to have 29 leads. And let's say, you kept the same sales process and you did 40% of those 29 people, which means you got 11 customers. which again, that tells you, okay, all right, if I spend $500 on marketing, that's going to get me to $5,500 in sales. Again, if your target is to get to 10,000, then we go back and say, in this scenario, you got an option. Either we can spend more money on marketing, or we can look at some other options. Now, what are your other options? Your other option is to get more effective in your sales process. This only comes by you actually knowing your numbers. Again, let's say if you improve your sales process, and let's say if you actually were able to get 50% of your leads to actually buy because you went back, you studied your sales process, or you just got more effective at being able to target the right type of customers. And let's say, in that second scenario, you spent the same $500. By simply getting better in your sales process, you increase your margin. You increase the actual sales that you hit because you got better at targeting the right people. And this is kind of how the math works. So let's look at this, because you still want to get to $10,000 of revenue per month. So let's go to that third scenario. And now, we could either improve your sales process, or we can increase the spend. And let's say if you increase your sales process a little bit more. Let's say if you got 55% of your leads you actually close. And let's say this time you decided to spend about $1,000 a month on marketing. So you're going to get more leads flowing through your process. Well, based on the way that math works, you spent $1,000. We know that it's $1,750 per lead. And if you're closing 55% of your leads, now this is rounding a little bit, so it's not exact, exact arithmetic, but that's rounding a little bit. And let me make sure this is calculating properly. Yes. So that's rounding a little bit, but that's going to get you 31 clients sold if you had 57 leads. Now, since we know that your average price is $500 per client or per customer, end result is $15,500 by spending a little bit more on marketing and by improving your actual sales process so your conversion rates get better. Now, people are always asking the question, Terrell, why is it so important to know your numbers? This is exactly why. Because see, what if you didn't know what these numbers were? What if you had no idea what these numbers were? Then you wouldn't be able to actually control you actually moving from this point to actually hitting your goal. But when you actually understand your numbers and you actually can do the math, and you can actually have a lot more control over whether or not you're actually moving towards your goal. Now, of course, your numbers won't stay exactly the same every single month. But as you're starting to look at your numbers and you can start to figure out what levers, either I'm going to spend more on marketing or I'm going to get better at the sales process. That may be I need to get the right type of leads in, or maybe I just need to actually be better at the sales part of my business so I can close a higher percentage of the leads that I bring in. Again, this is a simplified view, but even this simplified view explains the point of why you should know your numbers. So, hey, use this example, rewatch this video, run your own numbers. Actually, you know what? Put in the comments your own numbers. Like, what does your conversion rate look like? You know what? What does your cost per lead look like? And if you can figure those components out and you know what your average price is, I'm telling you, you will be a lot further ahead than most business owners, because business owners who struggle are business owners who don't know their numbers. But if you want to be a business owner that succeeds, you should definitely spend time getting to know your numbers.